Welcome to the 21st day of December, 2021. This is the Good Life Meditation. My name is Kurt. This is something I do every day to remind myself of my objectives and principles and to think about the day before and the day that's just ahead of me. And also the night that I just slept through, which is an interesting barometer of well-being. So first, let's think about yesterday. Yesterday was a Monday, and I spent too much time on Saturday and Sunday worrying about this Monday. I was worried because of work. I had a meeting that I was anxious about, a first meeting for one of my projects. That the meeting went really well, better than I could have hoped. It's so interesting how first the others, it was just wasn't even quite didn't even really rise to routine. It was more just like, picking up a cake on the way home for them. Yet it was so significant in my mind. It was important, as it set the tone and tenor for what's to come. So there was that, but it wasn't worthy of the amount of worry that I did beforehand, which is always the case with me. I always worry about work so much. But as a never. I want to say that I worry too much, but it's an investment, and that will pay dividends later. But at what extent? So there was that. In terms of my objectives and principles, I executed. Pardon me. Excuse me. This dry desert air really does something to me in the morning. It's hard to get started. So I executed my objectives and principles pretty much as I planned. I even made a short video just before the meeting to detail those. So there's that. When I got home, I had a really nice evening with my wife. She made such a nice dinner. Wow, that was really good. And we finished a show that we were watching together, which was nice as well. And then I went straight to bed. Another tired night. I slept really well. I only got up once to go to the bathroom, but otherwise I was knocked out all night. Yeah. I feel pretty good this morning. My state is, I took a slightly different path with this. This is the Anchorhold, way out in the desert. This is actually a real spot out in the foothills of the tongues of rock out by Siberia. In fact, you can see Siberia Ghost Town right there. There's the railroad and the Route 66, the Bristol Mountains back here, some other mountains over there. This is a high spot, which I just wiped myself off. I should be right there. I wiped myself off with my finger. There's my tent, and there was I sitting upon the high spot. And that was something that I really did. Hi, Ollie. That was some place that I really did spend the night out in the desert a long time ago. Oh, come sit in my lap. Come here. Oh, the dogs don't have their beds. That's why they're. So let's do this. Come here. Sorry, you don't have your bed. It's downstairs. I might have to go quickly. The dogs look like maybe they want to go pee. Usually they don't want to go out so early. Yeah. Come here. Come here. Come sit with me. Here we go. Aw. Hey, Rudy. let's go quickly. The good life, 7 objectives. First is to be always ready to die, have everything in order. 2 is to make good and effective use of time, to not waste my time or anybody else's. 3, the development and maintenance of good and sound life principles and objectives. 4, the cultivation of good emotional reactions. 5, the performance of good actions. 6, the recognition of true limits and true opportunity. 7, one thing slowly. If we put all those together, that paints the character of someone who is awake to the day's opportunities and is mindful not to let these fritter away, and who has tools that help him or her to make decisions, and who reacts well to what happens, is not liable to fly off the handle, despite frustrations that arise, who sees the scope of their opportunity and recognizes where limits, real limits, exist, and is mindful of these and accepts them, and who tries to do good things moving through the day. Good things defined of reasonable expectations and understanding of what constitutes good. The tools of this life, the principles are as follows. And I'm going to adjust a few today. Just one, really. I'm going to move it around. It sounds like a few because I'm doing this so that it can be co-located with another principle that I think is its cousin. First principle is war. To be always fighting against myself and all of my propositions of what is true. To never let myself settle in complacent acceptance. 2, reason and the sub-principles of honesty, objectivity, and doubt, which are the instruments that I use in the pursuit and prosecution of that war. 3, the homunculus is the fact that I have no soul. There's nothing inside me that's a ghost. Or at least there's no evidence of that. No good evidence. Instead, I am an emergent property. My consciousness is an emergent property of all this biology. Lowercase b. And I will, that will die away with me very soon when I die. And that'll be the utter absolute end, as much nothing as the memory of before we were born. Next is the Anchorhold, the place where that homunculus lives. In this case, I drew the homunculus on a desert rock in a nighttime sky without a moon. There's just stars everywhere. In a relatively warm summer night, or not summer night, desert night. Summer night, I wouldn't want to be out there. That'd be death the next day to be that far out. A pleasant place. Lonely? Not really. Sobering is what it is. Next is the home of good and evil. The catalog of all the things that I consider to be my values, which is basically, how does that differ from how does it differ from my objectives and principles? I guess it doesn't. It's the key part about the home of good and evil is pardon me, reminding myself, excuse me, that these are transitory, that these are ephemeral, and that they're opinion. They are my opinions, which I visualize that by picturing myself scribbling these in chalk on rocks or wood, whatever the structure is of the Anchorhold, so that I can look at them, wipe them free if I want and change them, or watch them blow away in the wind. That's the home of good and evil. Nothing really permanent. Purpose is the next principle, and my purpose is to be a good father, to be a father, and be a good father. And to that end also to be a good husband and brother, son, family man, all that. Also to live a virtuous life of making things better. And also to pursue my mission, which at this point in my life is to every day share the good life, doing exactly what I'm doing right now. At this point, making these videos is my purpose, is my mission at least, one part of my purpose. Next is the atomic principle. Everything is made of little pieces that will soon break up and fall away. And death will rob us of not only our homunculus, but also the apparatus on which the homunculus resides, our bodies. And though the homunculus will be gone forever, the molecules and atoms of which we are composed will persist in changing form. Maybe a good portion of it converted to energy and heat and sound. Entropy converted to entropy. That's our destiny. Next is the principle of nature. Everything has a particular nature, and I strive to recognize that and live according to it. I won't get into any details, but there's one in particular nature that I'm recognizing. It's causing me to adjust the way I'm doing things in a big way. It's very satisfying. It's very satisfying to approach the world in that way. I'll just leave it at that. Next is the pirate ride. The hypothesis is there is no free will, and I'm just about ready to give this one up. Although I won't remove it, what I'll do is I'll change my position. I'm not ready to do it just yet. I still think we have no free will. But maybe within the week, I'll be in a position where I won't be able to back that up, and I'll have to move to what my friend Trevor recommended is the neutral stance of, I don't know. But can't I still have an opinion? Next is maturity and the sub-principles of wisdom and fortitude. Maturity is that state that we arrive at when we experience life and remember the experiences that we've had and are strong enough to strive to repeat what worked and to not do again the things that didn't work, to tune ourselves to the mark. While also having the strength to try new things. Next is the social principle. We are social creatures. We humans need humans. It's very hard, maybe impossible, to go it alone, really, says the guy who wrote Going Alone, which is not the point of the book. Talk about misdirection. So let's be social. Next is public speaking. To be very careful about what we say, the words that we select, and who we elect to talk about, and to basically not talk at all, or very little, and very guardedly about anyone who's not around, for fear of gossip. And gossip scares me. That's a real sin. Next principle is temperance. Our controlled application of our energies and our thoughts, and our controlled interaction with the world, particularly other people. And the sub-principles of suffering, because we suffer when we don't give ourselves what we want. Simplicity, because a life of giving ourselves what's good and healthy, not just what we want, is a simple life. And then apathy, which is the key ability to recognize what is outside of our control and to let that stuff go. Okay, here's where I'm going to add my new principles, and I'm actually moving, there's 3 of them. I'm moving the third one from where it was the last 2 days into a new position at third in line at this triplet. These 3 principles are as follows. The horror show, on simply recognition that life is chock full of truly horrible things, not just for us humans, but for all life. I mean, I don't need to catalog things. Anyone that's an adult knows that life is just full of horror. Good stuff too, but I'm not focusing on that right now, because the good stuff doesn't require strength and fortitude to get through. It's the horror that does. The horror show. And the next principle after that horror show is that which must be borne. Recognizing what must be carried, what we cannot unsee, what is a fact that we have found, usually as a result of the horror show, that we must bear within us. That which must be borne. Doing the adult thing is to carry it in a mature fashion and let it inform our better living. And then the third one, which is hand on the rudder, to keep this ship moving in the direction of virtue, despite what we have to carry, despite the horror in particular. Because it isn't the warm sunset that's hard to steer towards or through. It's the dark clouds of the squall in our way, between where we need to be, where we want to be, and where we are now. Hand on the rudder, knowing that we have to bear within the hold what is horrible. The memory of those things, so that we can actualize on those. We can do something about it, if nothing more than to inform our our more informed living. Okay, those three. I like that. That worked well. I think I'll keep it that way. So I'll have to get into the book and move it around. Next is the Feast of Offal. Feast of Offal is when we've had enough. We just give up and we spew it out to everybody. What a mess. I try not to do that. How did it get to be over 20 minutes already? I have to move quickly now. The principle of distraction. We live our lives distracting ourselves from what we don't want to see, which is namely the great indifference, the emptiness of the universe, devoid of anything that really seems to care for us or would take care of us. The fact that we're alone as a species on a small rock spinning in the dark. Next is the principle of the best seat in the house, trying to be okay with whatever circumstance I find myself in, however happy or however grim. The horror show. Next is the Path of Wildness. It's the way up and through into new life. It is the course that we steer through life's horrors en route to that better place in spite of circumstance. Man, that's hard, but it's good. Next is the risk of avoiding risk, the deep and surface level risks of life, and the attempt to address both. Then comes the sin and damnation. We live a damned life when we engage in any of the following 7 sins. These are hope, faith, credulity, superstition, dogma, authority, or gossip. Next is the great life adventure. It's an experience that we give ourselves in life, that we make, that kind of forms the nucleus of our character. Then comes the Path of Wildness. The season of philosophy. The Path of Wildness leads to, if we're lucky, a season of philosophy, where we have something to say about our experience, and we record it for to be preserved for those to come. Then comes the bullseye aim, the striving to the mark and missing. Had one instance of that yesterday. It's funny, in the moment as I did it, I was thinking to myself, bullseye aim. And it really helped to relieve myself of the stress. And then the uphill climb, aka the open ocean swim. Climbing the mountain to get to that place in my picture. Life is that uphill climb. So it feels so much more satisfactory to have climbed. What a view. Then comes the arena and utility. Life is a place where we perform our act of living, and our values are the tools that we use in executing that life. And then lastly, nothing is enough. It's really enough sometimes just to have a little. Okay, that's it. That's my 7 objectives and 30 principles. I like the new order. As for today, today should be pretty straightforward. I have just a few meetings, routine mostly. One of them is we'll introduce a new project. I'm excited for that. I think I learned my lesson. I would have been more anxious if it hadn't been for yesterday's meeting, which I was more anxious about. Who knows, life might then throw me for a loop. So I should be ready for that. should anticipate that my assumption is that these meetings will go relatively straightforward, but I'll be ready if they don't, because I'll prepare, as I always do, and I'll be ready. Other than that, I plan to complete the work that I did yesterday on an important document. Today's the last day that the team has to review a draft that I made, and I will be meeting with the team tomorrow to review that document and plus some extra pieces. So this will be the first time for the team to see how I do things insofar as actually reading the document together, getting sign off together. I do this so we're all bought in on it, and editing live, and just move through the day. And I'll be ready for it to be ambushed. This is the time when you get ambushed, when you think it's a clear shot, when it looks like the path moves ahead and through a sunny meadow. And I think, it's going to be a nice stroll. That's what we're going to watch out for wolves. Not put them out there myself, but be ready should they pounce. And with that, I'll sign off. I hope you have a good day, and be safe, but not too safe. Bye-bye.